So let's go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Friday, day 5, I believe, of AirCon. Today, I'm joined by the wonderful Paolo Pavesi and the lovely Zoe from Molinaire. They're experts in the field of Foley for film and for games. And yeah, today I have the opportunity to ask them all kinds of questions about the topic and hopefully shine some light on this pretty mysterious craft and career path. Um, we've also had the pleasure of all working together on The Quarry. So yeah, hopefully we get that opportunity again. But it was very fun to do that, and also lots of learning for me at least. Awesome. So yeah, welcome you two. First off, could you just do a little bit of an introduction about yourselves and also talk a little bit about Molinaire and kind of what you do there?
Sure.
Of course.
You go first.
So we work for Molinaire. We've been here for 3 years now.
Yeah.
Molinaire is a post-production house based in Soho that predominantly does TV, film, and now games. Now that we're here, everything sort of full post-production package, including picture and everything audio. Myself and Paolo are part of the Foley team. So I'm Foley team leader and a Foley artist who works very closely with Paolo.
I'm the senior Foley editor. Yeah, that's it. The one title.
So myself and Paolo have worked together we probably should have worked this out before we started.
7? Let's go 7.
A while. So we used to work at Pinewood together, and then 3 years ago joined Molinaire.
Awesome.
We have a team of, I'm gonna say 17 total.
Yeah, feels about right.
Yeah. So it's a pretty big Foley team, 3 Foley studios. Yeah.
So lots of props.
All of the props.
Yeah, that's impressive. I mean, in that case, so you said 17 people. That is just in the Foley team.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. What are the kind of roles in that case? So, of course, we've got the artist and editor, your team leader as well. Could you give a little bit of the breakdown of all the people it takes and what they do as well?
Sure.
Of course. So we have assistants, first off. So that's usually where people will first join our department from being runners and show an interest in Foley. And so then they'll start as assistants, which they will help either set up the theatre studio machines, make sure everything's prepped for us to start shooting, or assist Paolo and the team.
Yeah. Any like material that you need, like downloaded, or if they have like a spare few moments they can sit in and shadow you for a bit, you can start sharing a bit of like tricks and tips with them as well. Just prepping them to like step up once it's time. Yeah.
So then from assistant, you'll have junior, there's sort of 3 strands: junior Foley artist, junior Foley mixer, or junior Foley editor.
Yeah.
And then as you do more, get more credits under your belt, you then lose the junior title. And then you have Paolo and Rebecca, who are our seniors. Rebecca's senior Foley artist, Paolo senior editor. And then myself, who then we all work alongside the much larger team of the Molinaire audio department, which sort of encapsulates sound design for games and sound design and track lay for film and TV.
But within the Foley team, that's the 3 main artist, mixer, and editor.
Okay, that's really cool. And I guess there's a lot of close collaboration. Obviously, you've worked together for such a long time, so I bet you're a super amazing team. What is the kind of collaboration within those 3 roles, and how does that look in terms of working together?
Well, I think the role couldn't exist on its own, sort of thing. So like a Foley artist would always go along with the Foley mixer, and same for us, Foley editors. Obviously, we wouldn't exist without Foley artist and Foley mixer, because we need to get the material.
Without these guys, I'm just a crazy woman running around in a room for no reason. Because if there's not a mixer, then nothing's recorded, and if there's not an editor, then it's all out of sync. Well, Not
No,
all
not
our
all of
sync,
it, not all of
obviously,
it.
but it's all messy.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have to have a lot of trust between us.
Super.
Because we literally can't do our jobs without the other one.
Yeah, and it also goes from like top to bottom and bottom to top sort of thing. So like it would like everyone's input is always taken into consideration, and so that goes from like maybe if you want to do like an ad on like add a layer to a sound, or you have like an idea for a particular scene, everyone can like chip in and ask. Like that goes like from us editors to the mixer and artists, and they can then tell us like, oh, I've done that little thing which might not sound on its own like it's meant to be there, but trust me, when you put it together, like if you do it that way,
Yeah. That's very cool. So just to take a step back, I'd love to get back into this in a little bit, but for some people who might be a little bit more introductory into the topic of game and film audio and don't really know what Foley is, could you give us a little bit of a breakdown for kind of, the basics of what Foley is, what it does, why it needs to be there, and why it's important?
Of course. So in its most basic form, Foley is the art of recreating sound. So it was first introduced in film back in the 1920s when the talkies started. And they realized then we use it now for when a picture gets turned into international versions. So you lose then all of the sound that's recorded on set, and you need obviously to hear people's footsteps, cups going down, all of those things that immerse you in the film or TV series. Obviously with game, you don't have recorded audio from set. So we will help with people like Greg make that feel real and immerse people and create those human sounds. Is typical Foley. I'd say one thing about our team is we're probably not typical Foley. We like to get fully involved and help create creatures and weapons, and
we kind of like step into the effects realm a lot of the times, especially with games. There's really like no limit. It's not just human. It could be whatever.
That's awesome. Yeah, so the lines are of course blurred, and it always depends on the context. But in general, bringing the characters to life, I guess, is a great way to put it. And then, so if we then go into kind of a little bit of the difference between games and films, you've already mentioned. What are some of the really big difference between those two mediums?
Well, I think assets is the first thing that comes to mind. So, for example, when we approach a video game, because of the non-linearity of the media, then you'll need a set of fixed sounds, I would call them. So like all the footsteps, costume movements, the more like repetitive sounds, maybe that's when we just do like a wild track of, let's say, footsteps on wood, like creaky wood, and then they would record it with all the different shoes, all the different motions, so like run, walk, sneaking around, crawling, like whatever is needed, and then we'll chop it up into individual assets that then lovely Greg will code into the game and into the engine, and hopefully they work.
But then the similarities would be cutscenes. So we approach cutscenes in exactly the same way that we would film. We want it to appear as a filmic masterpiece altogether as one. So we would cover everything in that from so Foley is feet, moves, and spots, just because we'll probably end up talking about that. So feet is obviously character feet. Spots is anything the characters are doing, touching, like picking up, any of that. And moves is their cloth. So cloth movements, different outfits, costumes, and then accouts, which is quite important in games. So you could have your army pack, your necklaces, breathing apparatus, depending on the game.
And obviously you've got like games where it's more grounded, I would say, but then other games when we've got complete, like, we can explore whatever sound we want. For example, Little Big Planet comes to mind. You know, it's a little stuffed teddy bear. I don't know how you call it, like walking on clouds.
Yeah.
And they need a sound, so they like the threads in the emails is just like, well, he's walking on clouds. Good luck, you know. And then this is where like the real creativity like comes into play, and you gotta like create it basically.
Yeah.
You just make some clouds, bring them into the studio, no
Yeah.
biggie. Yeah, that's cool. So obviously we worked together in the quarry. So in the quarry, I remember a lot of the cutscenes, as it is with game dev, are in quite early stages. So there's not that much visual to go by. So you're working a lot with descriptions and your own imagination. How much does that happen in film as well? I'm very curious. Do you get it a lot more fleshed out?
Usually mostly fleshed out, and then so we're almost one of the final stages, I would say, in film. It happens that sometimes like a creature isn't quite finished, but that's okay because the client will just say the movements are the same and the skin is going to be, it's a dragon, so dragon skin, can you just do the moves for that? The only time it's been a little bit difficult was on The Witcher, the latest series, where there was a lot of men dressed in blue with pool noodles. Just like, we're like, okay, I don't know what to do here. So then they'll just send us updates and we'll do it when the VFX are fixed. But definitely, obviously, a lot more goes into gameplay. So that happens more regularly in games.
Yeah, we always revisit like older episodes when we get updates and everything. So
yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that sounds like it's tighter deadlines as well, though. Is that true, or is it similar to games?
Yeah, much tighter deadlines on films, and we won't get as much time. So I think, for comparison, The Quarry, we might have been working on The Quarry in total, obviously on and off, for maybe 4 years.
Yeah, because we did some tests originally with the double microphones, and
whereas, like, only because I've just mentioned it, The Witcher, we get 5 days per episode. And that's an hour-long episode.
Wow.
Pretty busy episodes as well. It's not just people walking around.
That's intense. So do you prefer one or the other medium, or is it kind of refreshing to have both? Or
it's really refreshing to have both. Like, one thing I love about my job is that no day is the same at all. One day I could be, you know, doing a period drama TV series, picking up teacups and being massive, big, flowy dresses. And the next day I'm stabbing creatures and like running around in the mud. So the variety that you get from different types of projects, and then different games, TV, film. Yeah,
and the same goes for editing, because you know we got some sort of like set rules when it comes to like the technical side of it. So like all the Pro Tools stuff and like the boring DAW, but when it comes to like creativity, it's you know, something that worked on The Witcher, like editing wise, maybe it doesn't sound as good on The Quarry because the medium is different. So it's always a bit of exploration and like changing your style depending on genre and the media. Yeah.
Do you feel like you've learned a lot in terms of kind of working with both, or are they so similar that it doesn't really make a huge difference?
No, definitely learned a lot. Like, and every single project you're learning more.
Yeah.
Like, the technology, especially in games, is changing, and everybody's sort of trying different things and doing slightly different things and using that technology in different ways, which is really exciting to us to then be part of that. And then in terms of TV and film, like, streaming services are changing sort of how we approach things, because you're thinking more about, hang on, someone's actually just going to be watching this on their phone on the tube. So do we need to go as in depth for that? Or, okay, this is going to be big blockbuster on the cinema, Atmos, we need to do more.
Yeah, especially when it comes to maybe, I don't know, like systems, like in Games Engine. We got like different client from different studios, and maybe someone is trying a new system, so we need to like provide like the assets in a different form or a different sort of like, you know, length, or I don't know, just like testing basically, to see like what works, what doesn't, and yeah.
That's awesome. In terms of collaboration, obviously you're working with a bunch of different studios and clients, and you're also working with audio teams. You're working with, I guess, directly with directors and film studios and game studios. What do you think is easiest to work with? Is it easier to work with audio people, or is it easier to actually work directly with the creative department of the studio, or the film or games?
We only work with audio departments.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like we're talking at the beginning about how Foley's quite like secretive. I think probably actually quite a few film directors don't know what Foley is.
Yeah.
Like, that's how secretive it is.
In fact, like a couple of like quite big film directors, they came into the studio like a couple of times, and they were like completely blown away by them just lifting a cup, because they had no idea that, you know, it's just like 90% of what you hear on screen is not recorded on set. It's probably not even on set. So yeah, people a lot of times tend to like think that, you know, you just point a microphone and you get the movie out of it, but yeah, it's really not.
It's easy, right? That's amazing. Yeah. Just want to quickly regarding chat as well. So please, everyone, do just throw in your questions into the chat. I'm collating them all on a document, so I'll read them all through later. We'll have question time at the end. So yeah, if you think of something, just drop it in there, and I'll put it away for later. And yeah, we'll definitely get to your questions. Back to this. So going back to the job stuff again, I'm very curious in terms of the actual workflow. So let's say you're approaching a film sequence. How does that work from start to finish? And also, I'm curious about kind of like elaborating maybe a little bit more on the roles within that. We'll do it step by step. But first, you get a new film scene. How does that work?
Well, I think there's a bit like prior to even receiving like pictures or like the actual movie. There are conversations, obviously, with like sound supervisors or like the sound department. So some projects they might just ask for like the simple stuff. Some projects they just tell us go nuts, just do whatever. But in terms of like our team and our department, once you get the movie, then we have someone that goes through everything, and they sort of create like a map of sounds. So like we call it charting. So they create like groups in time with the picture, and to basically tell them when recording, like, oh, you need, you know, these characters' footsteps here. This other character, they are picking up a jacket, they're putting on the jacket, you know, they opening the door, getting into the car, so all that. So they visually know where and what they're doing, basically.
And it saves us much more time in the studio, because if you're scrolling through a film going, when does Bob move? When does he walk again? And you're doing that for every single character, you're going to be doing it for weeks.
Yeah.
And we don't have that sort of time. So yeah, they'll chart it out, and then it will come to the theatre. So we will record it, and we'll typically do like feet first, and then the spots, and then the moves. And depending on sort of client requirements and how close to deadlines it is, so film still gets delivered in reels, like even though it's not technically on a reel anymore. But so we'll either work a reel at a time and deliver then a reel at a time, or we'll do feet for the whole film, spots for the whole film. And then once we've recorded our first day, then
we'll pick it up, and we'll go through everything, just edit everything in time, basically. There's a few rules that we follow when it comes to like sync or footsteps placement, you know, just setting up the session, or like how you present the session as well, and then we'll send it off. And it just depends on like how tight the deadline is, but I personally prefer like to deliver like a complete reel, so like spots, feet, and moves, but a lot of the times there's no time, or they're already pre-mixing, so whatever you can chuck at them, they'll take it. So yeah.
Does it happen a lot where you throw stuff over the fence, so to speak, and they've already then saying, "Oh, it's too late"?
No.
Okay. That's good.
No, 'cause,
I'm glad to hear that, because sometimes that
Everyone
happens in games
really
where it's like
Yeah.
deadline, can't get anything in code lock, and then it's like, no. Yeah.
No, because it's always even on like we always try to work to the premix day. So like we aim, when the premix starts on, say, a movie or a TV series, they already have all the materials from us. But we're obviously like conscious that if it's a movie, they're not gonna. It's physically impossible to premix a whole movie in a day. So at that point, we'll make arrangements and we'll talk with whoever we need to talk to, like make a bit of a schedule, like what you need, when you need it, sort of thing.
Nice, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And in terms of like your team, so you mentioned that they're obviously juniors and everything. What does a mix of the team usually look like in terms of who works together and seniority and kind of that stuff? Because obviously you're all super dependent on each other.
So in terms of the mix of us, there's so I would work in a studio, minimum an artist and a mixer.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, depending on the project, we will also have like myself and Rebecca, the other senior artist, and a mixer and a junior mixer, or maybe a mixer and a assistant artist, so that they're all sort of learning at the same time. They can see what we're doing and how we approach the bigger projects. But yeah, minimum in terms of in the theatre, there's always an artist and a mixer.
Yeah, and then as well, this is a bit different because you can't really edit together, sort of thing. We do have like a shared space upstairs in this building, but most of the Foley editors, they have their own room. So then, when it's like in terms of like collaborations between editors, we'll split out. For example, on the last projects that we did, we will split out. For example, I'll take the feed, you can take the spots, and then we'll just collate them together. Then when it comes like review time, so it's something that we always do. Like we review everything before sending it out, obviously, because it needs to like sit within the dialogue and the effects and the music. You need to make sure that it's not like all over the place. So when it comes to reviewing, then if we have the time, I will have the editor that helped, or I'll go into the review with whoever is reviewing basically. And basically whoever reviews and then sends is the person responsible for the job. So in terms of like communications with the clients and responsibilities as well, it's it's the person who sends it basically. Yeah, the one put in the face basically. Yeah.
Whereas in the theatre for seniority, it's much, when we're actually in the studio, it's much flatter, because for us, like the recording side of it and the artistry is so creative. So like I don't care if you've literally just stepped up from being a runner. If you've got an idea, let's work on it together. Let's do it together. Let's perform it together. Let's get that prop. Let's like build this sound together. There's no, I mean, there is a couple of wrong answers, but like sound is so subjective most of the time anyway, that there's no right or wrong way of interpreting it.
Yeah. And same comes like again in the review process. If someone is sitting in or someone walks in because they need something and they see a scene and they're like, oh, maybe let's try to move that like 2 frames and see what happens when these other sounds came in, or have you thought of adding a layer of just creaks, or what if you try a leather creak on that little movements because it's it fits the scene or the genre, or
Yeah, Foley is one of those absolutely incredible, mysterious crafts, I think, as well, where it's essentially like live sound design, and you're just infusing the emotions as well into a character of how they're feeling, how they move, and all of that, and and what they do. I'm curious to know, in terms of when you when you're working with a blank slate and there's some more creatively challenging things, how do you go about the prop selection, and what's the kind of process for that?
So we break it down. So I'm just trying to think of something challenging that we've done recently. But so say we did Squanch, the what was it called? High on Life.
Yes.
So that's quite challenging. It's slime.
Record.
The whole world is slime, basically. So how do we create that? Because if you think of slime and like the slime that you get in your hands, sounds shit. It's horrible. It's tacky. It's not what you want it to sound like.
Yeah.
So then you break it down and you go, all right, I need something thick and gloopy, but then you need a base layer to that so that the footsteps sit in on that and the character still sounds heavy and like a human and not just like tapping across the floor. And then sometimes you want something really sticky and stretchy. So how do we make that? And then so we'll record all these different layers, and Paolo will cut them all together, make it all work, and then send it back to us, and I'll go, oh no, I don't like that layer, actually, let's take that one out. And Paolo will go, yeah, no, I was thinking the same, I had a little play about with it, but yeah, so break it down, essentially.
Yeah, it's really cool how I love that so many people get to touch it as well, because often in sound design it's like you're kind of focused on one specific thing and then you get feedback for it. But sometimes no one else touches it. Oftentimes that is not the case. Oftentimes it also follows through different hands, but it's so cool that you get to have so much collaboration. Is there anything specific in terms of working together that you've learned over the years and how to work well as a team? Because that must be very challenging as well, especially for newcomers who all of a sudden kind of come out of university or something, very isolated. You know, you're hustling in your own little bubble, and then you have to be part of this team. What's that like, and how do you kind of fit into that?
I'd say because most of us have worked together for such a long time, we've got quite a family approach. So it is quite, it feels quite easy for people to just, and we're also passionate about what we do. One thing about absolutely being in sound at all, I think, and audio, is if you're not passionate, there's no point being here. Like, so you have to be passionate, and that's the thing that knits you all together in this weird little family who love sound. So you gel over that, and
but I think definitely because like almost the majority of the team has been working together for a number of years, then it's easier for us to welcome newcomers as well, and make them feel at ease with everyone, and especially once they see that you can talk about everything with everyone. That's not like we never went like, oh, I'm not going to talk to that person because they're seniors or they are like that's what I always tell everyone. Like, my door, even though it's soundproof, is always open, and it's actually the soundproof of it is because you can come in here and share whatever, and you're not it's just making people feel comfortable, basically.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would love to know, how do you get into the field? Because it's one of those things where it's like, you don't see a lot of advertisements for it, and it's often super mysterious. It's like, how do I even get into this? So what is your advice for people trying to pursue a career path, either in as a Foley artist, as a mixer, or as an editor?
So for Foley artist, I would say it's Foley artist and editor is probably, I don't want to say the easiest, but like, you have freelance Foley artists and Foley editors. You don't have freelance Foley mixers. So there's a couple of different ways you could go about it. But it all depends on, obviously, how many studios there are, how many projects are currently been done in the UK. So it's a very bit of a roller coaster of an industry. And it is a very small industry as well, very small, which is why it's quite difficult to get into. So, and everybody in the team has had completely different pathways in. There's no one set way.
We've got people that went to uni, like studying sound design. We've got people that studied music production. We've got people who didn't go to uni. It's not, you don't need a degree to like do whatever we do. It's like we're not rocket scientists, you know. We just do sounds.
Make cool sounds.
Yeah, we make cool sounds. That's what we do all day.
But so like my advice would always be to reach out to people.
Yeah.
So reach out to, you know, artists, mixers, editors, you admire their work, open a conversation with them. You can start, you know, shadowing, get yourself known by people and show, for me personally, show your passion and enthusiasm.
Yeah, 100%.
And then, yeah, it is difficult and you might get knocked down a couple of times. We all did, but it's worth it in the end if that's what you're passionate about and that's what you love.
Yeah, definitely talk to the people that you know, kind of either want to work with or you know them because someone at uni said something about them, or you know, and then just go for it, basically.
And I guess because there's so many different types of studios, so like we work at Molinaire, which is a post-production house that has its own Foley department. Other Foley studios are completely isolated and they are just a Foley studio. So if you were coming to Molinaire, it would be probably starting as a runner and then working your way up and finding us and chatting with us, making yourself known. And then if there's an opening within the team, then we'd have a chat and see if you were the right person. I guess it would be a bit more difficult if it was a independent Foley studio, because they don't have as big a structure and support there. But so that would be definitely the reach out, the getting to know them as individuals, and they would probably be very open to having work experience and stuff in and shadowing and learning in that way.
That's awesome. I mean, I think it's interesting as well because it reminds me a little bit more of traditional kind of music production studios and things like that, where you can get into the door with a runner and do shadowing and stuff that usually doesn't happen at games companies, unfortunately. Because for lots of different reasons, I guess, but it's just not that kind of culture. So it's really cool that you have that, and I wish we had a little bit more of a culture of that and just being able to go in and shadow people, because that's such a, you know, it's the best way to learn, essentially. Is
that's what happens like a lot of the times here at Molinaire, when like the runners, they get like a break during the shifts or something, they come in, sit, ask questions, we'll show them what we do,
obviously all completely under NDA.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, random guy on the street, I do Foley, want to come and see?
No, it's usually people within the company that do this.
For sure. And the NDAs are the bane of all of our lives, I think. So what are you working on? Well, in terms of just pure skill set for people looking to kind of before they make the step of reaching out as an artist, as a mixer, as an editor, what are the fundamental skills that they should kind of pursue and get good at to be able to enter even just as a runner and stuff?
So for an artist, for me, well, for all of it is good ears and like a basic knowledge of sound. As an artist, if I'm being completely honest, I'm the least technical of all of the Foley artists. There's 4 of us. I'm the least technical, but that doesn't matter because I don't need to be technical. I don't need to know how to use Pro Tools or how to mix or much about microphones. Obviously, I know the basics, but I couldn't do what Paolo does.
And I couldn't do it.
But I can, you know, I know what sounds good. I know how to manipulate props and items like that. And that's just from practice. That's nothing that anyone can teach you. Like, that's just from walking in time to the telly at home on your own, or picking up props in charity shops and going, oh, what does that sound like? What would I use that for? It's all stuff that you can't get a degree in. It's all knowledge.
Yeah. I think the bottom for everyone is like just practice as much as you can, like whatever you want to do. But for mixers and editors, of course, like is a bit more technical because of the tech that we're using, I would say. So like obviously knowing Pro Tools if you want to work in the film and TV industry, because that's still the standard. We've got editors that work in Reapers for like video games, more like sound design, sort of. Yeah, exactly. There you go. We've got people that jump between the two, and then for mixers, obviously, like there's an additional level because then we got like analog desks that we record on. So you gotta know your EQs, your compressors, and all the chain that you're using and all that. So yeah, it's a bit more technical, bit more studying, I would say. Maybe get a book and just learn, a few basic things, and then you see how that works. Yeah,
That's awesome. I mean, that's a very clear breakdown. I think so. For artists, is really ear training, prop sound, practicing the actual motions of creating live sound, and then for editor and mixer, it's very much DAW focused and picking up those software skills, and of course also ear training, obviously, and editing, getting your editing chops together.
Yeah. But and there's always like an element of like being creative within all the three of the roles, obviously. But yeah, it's way more technical just because of the nature of the job, I'd say, for mixers and editors.
In terms of portfolio, do you feel like a classic demo reel that has some maybe clips from, I guess, depending on where you're applying to, games and films, or games or films, or both, or one of them, and basically doing a full kind of Foley resound on them? Is that a good approach for reel, or is there some different specific things you look for?
I think it depends on what who's the person sending the reel. It depends what you are looking to get into. So like, I wouldn't send a soundscape made of synths and pads if I'm trying to get into Foley sort of thing. But as a person receiving the reel, I'll always appreciate like a bit of refolding, because especially if you're doing the performing, recording, and editing, which is most of the time the case with university projects or just getting your portfolio together. But also, you can do a bit of a mix with like sound design and effects with the Foley, because that's what we try to do as well. We always do like little ads or have little ideas. But, I think that's...
Well, for our most recent Foley artist hire, which was a year ago now, we had 160 applicants. I think maybe 4 of those had show reels. The rest was just CVs. And then we held like a big open interview where we showed them how to perform, like obviously a little bit, and then went, okay, give it a try and see how they move and stuff like that. So none of it was actually really based on showreel. It was more, okay, you've said the right things in your CV, you seem interesting, your cover letter's great. Like, that's what I was looking out for personally.
That's incredible. So it's basically like a kind of a live practice test.
Yeah, which sounds terrifying when you say it like that, but you've got to be able to, as an artist, perform under pressure. There is always going to be at least one other person in the room with me. And yes, when you're starting off, you're not going to get every take exactly right, but you have to be able to perform under pressure without just crumbling. You've got to have some level of confidence. Yeah,
100%.
Well, that's cool. I had no idea about that, to be honest. And, that definitely sounds a bit terrifying, going in and having to do that, but also really exciting. I mean, how cool is that to do a job interview and a live test by performing sounds and all of that? That's awesome. Right, I would love to open it now to the chat, and we've got so many cool questions. I'm gonna start with Aiden Hall's question. What would you look for from someone wanting to get into Foley artistry, editing, or mixing? Okay, well, right, we've just covered that. Excellent. So, sorry, I haven't really read these before. Let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to. The chat is moving while I'm doing this, so this is a little bit tricky. This was the first question from Aiden there. When recording sounds for use in games, How much / what editing goes into the individual sounds besides cleaning before delivery to the sound designers? For example, normalizing, compressing volumes versus keeping raw levels.
Well, that is all the Foley mixer will take care of that while it's recording. So usually, especially for like assets, because you don't have an ambience to put them into, it's usually quite dry. But that's on the that's one of the requirements anyway, because you don't want to apply any sort of effects, reverbs, or too much compression or any of that before we send them to, for example, you, Greg, because then it's gonna mess up your in-game reverbs and all of that. So like, yeah, for games assets, they're usually quite dry. We tend to always have a deliverables specifications in terms of like loudness, length, fades, what to do. Naming is a big one. Yeah, naming. So yeah, it's a pretty normal amount of editing, I would say. There's not much to look out for. There's a fine line between, let's say I only have to send, let's say the requirement is like 20 footsteps for the run on wood. They will record like a number of them, and then I'll pick the best ones. But you need to keep them similar but different, so that it doesn't sound like it's repeating itself, because you don't know the order they're going to be played in, because it's all random in the game engine. So you still want the same amount of character in every footsteps, but you don't want it to be obviously the same footstep. You still want left and right. It's yeah, I would say that's probably the biggest part of editing assets.
Nice one. So I think that the next question kind of goes into that, which is, do the steps of processing Foley, for example, Atmos or surround sound systems for film, is different to Foley processing for games? So I guess what you've just a little bit mentioned in terms of how you don't want to process them too much for games, especially, does that apply to films as well? And how is it with the multi-channel mixes?
For films, we like to sit it in the space.
Yeah.
So we will take a look, because obviously we can see why we are performing the sound, where it's going to sit in the media. So we will almost listen to everything that we've already been given by the client, which includes dialogue, music, any effects that they might have already put in, and we'll go, great. So because of all of, we will decide what we shoot and don't shoot, or we'll go, the music is doing this. So even though I was wearing these shoes for this character on this surface in the scene before, with the music now, it is absolutely not going to work, and it's going to poke through and sound horrible. So I need to go maybe for a chunkier heel that's not going to poke through as much, but you still feel the character there. And then it'll be sat back in the space and feel like it should exist there.
Yeah.
For film and TV, you shouldn't be able to tell it's Foley.
Yeah.
That's when it's good Foley. If you can go, oh, the Foley in that is great, then it's not good Foley.
Yeah, when you ask yourself the question, oh, was that Foley? Then we've done our job correctly.
Yeah.
Which is not the opposite, but for like cinematics, for example, like we need basically, like, we kind of need to know how the cinematics are going to be mixed, because again, if they're mixed in game, then we need to go dry. Because we actually had a recent project where we recorded everything like it was sitting in the space, and it was sounding like brilliant, like it was translating really well in the theater for us and everything. But then they came back saying, oh, sorry, this is going to be all mixed in engine. We're not doing like a mixing pass. So could we have everything dry, please? Yeah. So
luckily,
it really
only
depends.
One video, so it's
yeah,
fine.
Exactly. Yeah, but yeah, it depends on the game, really, on the project. Some people, they just want it like full cinematic, as in like cinema mode from us. Other people, they just want dry because they're gonna do their own. The Xbox is gonna do it, or the PlayStation is gonna do it, so it's them.
That makes a lot of sense. Owen asked, what are your favorite genres of film or games to work on?
Horror.
Yeah.
Across both, because gore sounds are so much fun. Like, really fun. And you get the fight scenes with it and weapons and gore. But then also, complete flip side, for me, animation film is like top tier, because I get to create stuff
there's no boundaries
completely from scratch.
Yeah, pretty much the same. Any sort of like fighting, dancing as well is really fun. Any sort of musical is great. To be honest, every project's got like their own little interesting bits, you know. Even if it's a normal like TV drama, there might be that one scene that you go like, that was nice and everything's working together nicely, and it's just nice. But yeah, if we had to pick, probably animation for me as well. And horror's a good one.
Yeah, I feel similar. It's always really, really fun, especially when you have a lot of creative liberty and can go out there. Cool. Ariel's next question is, what's the best way to start doing Foley, and what is the best way to practice when you definitely don't have a full Foley studio? So I guess we answered the first one, but the second one is something that we haven't covered.
So when I first realised, one, what Foley was, and the fact that I absolutely had to do it and had to be part of it. But yeah, I didn't have a Foley studio. My uni wasn't, I studied theatre. So nothing post-production at all. So there wasn't a studio per se. So I used to practice at home, and I would put on a film, like any film that I knew had a lot of walking. So the first one I chose was the Reese Witherspoon one, where she's like climbing across the trails of America. I can't remember what it's called now, but it doesn't matter that you don't have that surface and you don't have those shoes and you don't have a microphone, because as an artist, it's all about learning how your body moves. Every single artist, all of our bodies move and sound completely differently. So I would walk along in time. So that would be getting my sync, like training my sync and training my characterization. So I'd do that for hours on end, just watching different films, different TV programs, trying to walk all the characters, and then picking up props, going to charity shops and picking up different things and seeing what they sounded like and thinking about how I could then use them in a different thing, in a different way to what they are originally designed for. And then it's just, once you get better at it, it is muscle memory. Like, completely. So now I don't even think where my feet are going or what my feet are doing. I am that character, and that is how I am walking, because that is how I am feeling.
Yeah, and awesome. I think on the editor side, just edit as much as you can, even if it's just like ripping a video out of YouTube and using free sound libraries, just start chopping up stuff and try to change it, see what the plugin does, see what it doesn't do, what happens, if you over compress it, what happens if you under compress it, or just try. Yeah.
That also sounds like an intense workout, watching like 2-hour long films and moving with all the cameras. That's awesome though. Really, really cool stuff, and great answer. Let's see. So next question is, this is actually a funny one. Question for both. Which kind of props do you hate most, practical and sonically speaking, when doing Foley for games and films? Any props that you do not like? Velcro.
Velcro is difficult. Not for me, obviously, but for mixers, Velcro is difficult. Yeah.
Sorry, that was.
No, it is.
You want to click it, but not that clicking, and it's very complicated to get.
I think it's more like specific things, like, as I was going back to like things being subjective.
Yeah.
Like for me, I've got there's a cassette player that I really like the sound of. I love the sound of the buttons, but one of the mixers I work with hates it, and that's their personal preference. They think it sounds terrible, and I'm like, yeah, but I really like the buttons. So then we come at a compromise. Chains are really difficult.
They're difficult, but they're really lovely. At least to edit, they're really lovely. I don't know. I don't think I've got I've got a favorite one.
Yeah.
So like, yeah,
Cool.
any like sort of like medium heavy metal cap on a chunky wood table.
That
Like,
is so specific.
that, like, you know what, when you just get it right, that is one of my absolute favorite sounds to like listen to and edit. Like, that I hate the most, I don't have anything that I hate specifically. Some days maybe I'm a bit more like, not grossed out by you know, you get a bit of a shiver when you, maybe it's like a macro of like a monster mouth moving, and there's a lot of like sort of like in you know, do you know what I mean, like a squishy, slimy sort of thing. But some days I love it. So yeah, it really depends.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. It's also, I guess, kind of like if you're a little bit fatigued hearing one thing or another. That happens to me a lot, where it's like, oh, again this. Tan asks, do you have to get in the industry by being a runner, or are there other pathways to get there?
I mean, to be honest, I would still say it's runner. Or, I mean,
I think
you didn't start as a runner,
I
did
did
you?
not start as a runner, but I was covering for someone. So I started as an audiobook editor, and I came in like covering for someone that was on another job for a couple of weeks, and then just ended up staying, which was very lucky. But I think, well, like, it also depends at what stage of like life you are, because like most of our runners, they go from 18 to 22, maybe.
Yeah, 24.
Yeah.
Yeah, early 20s.
But then on the flip side, we've got members of staff, like, they're already editing, doing sound design, that are like 20. So it doesn't really, I don't know, it's a bit of a tricky one, but
I think running personally is a really, really good way into the industry, because you get to see and learn so much.
Yeah.
Like, every department, especially if you're running for a facility, not only are you seeing Foley editors, you're seeing dialogue editors, you're seeing mixers, you're meeting clients, and those clients, if you make them a banging cup of tea, they will remember you in 5 years' time, like, hands down. And that's why I think it's so important.
Yeah. Well, we actually we have a few clients that came back just because of the runs, so it's very important.
Yeah, crucial.
I mean, not just because of the runners, obviously, because we did a good job, but like, because they remember like how they were treated when, you know, you come into the door.
Yeah. It sounds like you're a little bit of the kind of the person who makes sure, you know, they have the pillows for the head, so to speak, that they're comfortable, they have the tea and everything. That's great. Cool. Samantha asked if you have any tips on recording cloth, because that's a very hard thing in terms of how you execute it. Any general tips?
I mean, I couldn't say precisely, as neither of us are mixers, but I would, mic distance is very important. And also the type of microphone you're using and the type of cloth you are using, dependent on the character and so like what they are wearing. But people often get confused and think that you know, my jeans will sound different to Paolo's jeans. They're not going to sound different. They're going to sound pretty much exactly the same. It's how it's performed as well. So moves, sometimes people go, oh, moves really boring. They're actually one of my favorite things, because it's you can really just lose yourself in it, and you can still put the emotion of the character into it, which I know sounds crazy, but you can. But yes, I think it's all about cloth choice, mic distance, and making sure, I think, very basically in terms of EQ and stuff, that you don't lose too much high end or low end, because it is the full spectrum of the frequencies that make the cloth. But
keeping
most
it natural.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And and I guess if you're just trying out, you might as well pick interesting materials.
I think exploration is such a big thing. It's like most of the things I know is like I tried it tons of times. It sounded shit like 90% of the time, and then at some point it's like, aha, that's one way to get it sounding okay. Awesome. Ariel asks, what are some must-haves in terms of material items, etc., for a home Foley studio?
Ooh.
Shoes, any and all shoes, good sounding ones. If we're just talking like props and items, always like selection of different kitchen bits, and like good personal items as well. So like wallets, handbags, keys, glasses. These are things that come up in pretty much every single thing you will do, and you won't realize that your wallet that you've been using for the last 5 years actually sounds shit until you really think about it.
And a good selection of paper as well, I reckon.
Yes.
Yeah. From postcards to newspapers to magazines, photographies, anything paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then in terms of like the actual building of a home studio, I would say the most important thing for me is a solid floor.
Yeah.
Don't build a Foley studio on the first floor, because your footsteps are never going to sound solid, and they need to sound solid and grounded. Yeah,
that's actually some very good advice. Don't record on the first floor.
Yeah.
That's good. Cool. We're running out of time. I just wanted to know if you guys are up for like doing an extra 5 minutes, or do you need to shoot right at the time?
Let's do it.
5 minutes.
Awesome. Amazing. Then we'll just try and get through a couple more of these. Cool. So Shreyas asks, what are the do's and don'ts, or actually, what are the don'ts while recording a Foley footsteps for film?
Don't mic too close.
Yeah.
Not too many transients, because then it'll just poke through the dialogue, the music, whatever. Then they won't use it, or they will throw it straight back at you and go, nah.
Yeah, transient control is a big one.
Yeah. And weight and character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't just walk for the sake of walking, basically.
No.
Do it with intention.
Yeah.
Always.
Will asks, what would you suggest for creating sword swings and impacts? Looking for some inspiration.
Fencing sword or a metal arrow would be my two sort of go-tos.
Mm-hmm.
But then you could also mix it up and just bamboo sticks, just typical bamboo sticks.
For the whoosh, it's pretty much anything that you can swing around and makes a sound.
Yeah. I mean, I've used a spatula before.
Yeah.
Just typical kitchen spatula.
Yeah, definitely. Those painting ones are also awesome.
Yeah.
They're super resonant.
Yeah. And for impacts, anything that you can make an impact out of, really. Even if it's just you punching the table and then you need to change it a bit, or kicking a metal box, Yeah.
Nice. Aiden asks, any advice on how to improve the skill of knowing what sound or prop to grab when kind of chasing a certain effect that doesn't have an obvious prop choice?
I think we can go back to the break it down sort of thing. If in your mind you have how you want it to sound, then you can sort of going, oh, I want to do some clicking, then you try and look for the clicky one.
Yeah.
Or
it's very rare unless you're doing like an office scene or a kitchen scene. Like when you are getting to those creative things, it is pretty rare that you are going to find one sound, one item that you record one track of, and then that sound is done. It's always made up of multiple layers. So break it down.
Good stuff. Advice to overcome the burnout or creative block as Foley editors and Foley artists.
For me as an artist, it's more like physical burnout, but it's not, I'm not going to use the word burnout, but like physical exhaustion. Especially game assets are exhausting. You are running on the spot in 20 different pairs of shoes for days on end. So you just got to make sure that you like look after your body, because my body is my job.
Yeah.
Like if I break my leg, I can't work. If Paolo breaks his leg, it's a little bit annoying.
Yeah,
but
that's how I broke my shoulder.
So yeah, just look after yourself. And I think because we are such a tight-knit team, we all do look after each other as well, like on the mental side of it. So just go, oh, Paolo, I'm not feeling too confident about this sound that I made today. Can you really just look up? I know you're not editing that bit yet, but can you just have a quick look over it for me? I just need a second set of ears, or third set of ears, like. And he'll come back and go, okay, yeah, why don't you try this? And we'll do it to each other and the whole team as well. Like, it is a big team thing.
Yeah. And I think on an editing standpoint, let's say I've been like on footsteps for a week, and you can't hear another footstep for the day. I just switch to something else, something that I kind of know is going to be easier. Maybe just start with some moves to just get in the groove, or do some spots that maybe remember there's a scene with a lot of, again, maybe slime or a fight, like a one hit sort of spots, and I'll just go over those ones and have a bit of fun. Or just take 5 minutes, rest your ears, make a cup of tea, go for a bit of a walk, try to decompress a bit. That would be my advice.
That's definitely some good advice.
Yeah.
Cool. We've got another question from Aiden. I think we've covered most of this already, but in case there's anything to add, what would you look for from someone wanting to get into Foley, artistry, editing, or mixing? That will be a good starting step for newbie to show the right skills and proactivity. Foley show reels or sound collections or something unique?
I mean, always up for something unique, definitely. Yeah. But for me personally, especially as we are quite an established team, one of the main things I was looking for was who you are as a person, and how well you would fit with the team. So in my opinion, it doesn't matter who you are, what your background is, where you come from, any of that. As long as you are passionate and hardworking and excited and just want to be part of this world, then fucking come on in.
Yeah, everything that we can't teach, basically.
Yeah.
Because we can teach all the skills that you need, but we can teach your passion, and that's pretty much it.
Absolutely love that. Then we're gonna do two more, and then we'll finish off. So Aaron asks, do you have any specific examples of films or games that you love for its Foley execution? Whether you've worked on it or not.
Oh, right, okay.
Both is fine.
All of the ones that we've done, obviously.
Yeah.
I really loved I'm only going to say the ones that we've worked on, because, as I said before, if it's good Foley, then you shouldn't know it's Foley. So Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah, 100%.
The detail that the clients wanted and allowed us to put into it was beautiful and incredible. And every scene we were just like,
it was nuts. Yeah, that one was actually nuts.
Yeah.
I think I was gonna say one, but I think I can't say that one because this is quite recent. Well, anything that makes me feel like I'm watching a movie and not a project, if it makes sense. So when I'm able to like detach from what I've just edited and just sit and watch it, sort of thing. So and it could as well be a very light hand on skin, and it could be a fight scene.
Sounds that make you feel something.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
are important. Like sometimes when we've finished recording something in the theatre, we'll turn the dialogue off and just listen to the Foley and the music, and then be like, oh my god, and there's nothing there. You don't really actually know what's going on.
Yeah.
But especially with like Alex Garland's work, we've done quite a few Alex Garland projects. the way his films are shot just call out for good sound.
Yeah.
Because every shot is so thought about and beautifully executed that you just want to match that and put that love into it from our world.
Yeah, or anything that you can make that you can help feel big, if it makes sense. For example, like, I don't know, I'm thinking like Matilda, like all like the dances, or just like the little ads that we done in the background, just to like make it feel like we are there, sort of thing. Yeah.
It's really hard eating all that cake.
Yeah, I bet it was.
I also want to say on Ghost of Tsushima, that is absolutely incredible. I was doing a workshop with some students the other day, actually doing a breakdown of Ghost of Tsushima, and so much of it was about the Foley and everything, and I picked the riding sequence with like full saddlebags and everything, and it was like so amazing. So yeah, thank you for your amazing work. And then the last question is, what props do you cherish the most? We got that medium heavy metal.
the medium metal cup.
Yeah. I'll get that engraved for you now, I know. Creaky bit of leather. Because that can cover so many things and help with so many things. Creaky bit of leather, and do you know what? Probably my shoes.
Yeah, I was thinking shoes for you.
And only because I've just recently had to have a bit of a clear out because a lot of them have been through the wars. And I was just sat there on the floor yesterday going, I can't throw these away. These are my poly shoes. And everyone's like, nobody cares. They are falling apart and they smell. Throw them away. So yeah, a creaky bit of leather, my shoes, and a really nice bit of jewelry.
Nice.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you both so much for your time. It was a huge pleasure to talk to you, and also to have this great insight into the mysterious realm of Foley. I think that was really enlightening. Well, for me, it was really enlightening, but also for so many other people, especially trying to get into the field, because it's one of those things that's really kind of like, where do I even start? So that was super helpful, and the breakdowns and everything. So yeah, thank you both so much. Is there anything you'd like to plug or share, anywhere to follow you to, or anything like that?
We're both on Twitter.
Yeah.
And we've got Sound Warriors. I think it's
Soundwarriors_ on Instagram is the team's page. Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for having us. It's
it
been
was
lovely
amazing. Thank you, Greg.
to you.
Amazing. Thank you.
All the great questions, everyone.
I'm gonna end the stream now. Thank you everyone for showing up and for being part of Aircon and Airwiggles in general. And yeah, we've got a couple more coming up. After this one, I'm gonna be chatting to David Fairfield, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, take care everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.